Hi, this is Gayle Schoen, and today I am on Upper Hands Piano Book 4, page 60, and I wanted to discuss a little bit about diminished seventh chords. I love diminished seventh chords. They sound so cool. Diminished seventh chords have a very kind of a little bit eerie or edgy or angst kind of ridden sound to them, and they sound very unstable. They want to go somewhere. They don't want to just stay there. They want to resolve to somewhere else. Whereas like a major chord, it just sounds fine where it is. It doesn't sound like it needs to go anywhere or resolve. It's just a nice, strong chord. But a diminished seventh chord, it really wants to go somewhere. And it has this kind of edgy sound to it. Very cool. You find it in all different kinds of music. In jazz, in classical, all kinds of popular music, including like gospel and ragtime. Tons of music all over the place. So you want to get comfortable with a diminished seventh chord. Alright, so one way to find a diminished seventh chord is to start at any note. Let's say you want to find a G diminished seventh chord. And just like with the diminished with the diminished triad, you're going to count up 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. Okay, except for you're going to add a fourth note. This is a 4-note chord instead of a 3-note chord by counting up 3 again. 1, 2, 3, half steps. Alright, so that's on G. Let's try it on B flat. Here's a B flat. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, there is a B flat diminished triad. And now to make it a diminished seventh, we're going to go 1, 2, 3 and add that fourth note. Okay, so another way to approach finding this would be, let's say we want to start from a C major seventh chord. So that consists of the first, the third, the fifth, and the seventh note of a C scale. That is a C major seventh chord. C, MAJ7 is the way it would look in sheet music. Okay, we want to transform this to a C diminished seventh, so let's do it a step at a time. First of all, I'm going to take the seventh, and I'm going to flat it by moving it down a half a step. We now have a C seventh chord. Instead of a C major seventh, it's just a C7, also known as the C dominant seventh chord. But in music, you would just see C7. Okay, so now I'm going to make it a C minor seventh chord by taking my E and turning it into an E flat, going down half a step. Now we have a C minor seventh chord. C, E flat, G, B flat, C minor seventh. Okay, now if we want to turn this into a diminished seventh, what we're going to have to do is lower the fifth a half a step, and then also lower the flatted seventh down another half step. So our root remains the same, but our third gets flatted, our fifth gets flatted, and our seventh gets flatted twice. 1, 2. So from the C major seventh to the C diminished seventh, we flat the third, we flat the fifth, and then we flat the seventh twice. Okay, and that gives us 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 half steps between each interval. Alright, so I just wanted to mention one more thing, and that is the confusing aspect of what these notes are called. So this is called a C, this is called an E flat, which is easy enough, and this is called a G flat. But in a diminished seventh chord, I'm afraid we don't call this an A, we actually call this a B double flat. And that's because in the chord, the letters have to skip a letter. So this is a C, this is an E, this is a G, and this is a B. And when we make it a diminished seventh, they have to still say some kind of a C, some kind of an E, in this case an E flat, some kind of a G, in this case a G flat, and some kind of a B, and in this case a B double flat. If we call this an A, that's really a sixth, and although it's the same note, we call it a double flat to be using proper musical terminology. If you want to think of this as an A, that's fine, but technically this is a B double flat. Okay, let's try it in another key. Let's try it in B flat. Okay, so B flat, major 7th. We'll go 1, 3, 5, 7. Okay, so we've got the first note, the third note, the 5th note, and the 7th note of the major scale. And that is now a B flat major 7. B flat MAJ 7. So to make this a B flat 7th, I'm going to take the top note and flat it. Okay, now we have a B flat 7th. Okay, now I want to make it a B flat minor 7th. So I'm going to take the third note and flat that one. Okay, now to make it a diminished 7th, I'm going to flat my 5th, go down a half a step, and I'm going to flat my already flat 7th down a step. So let's check it by counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we know it's a diminished 7th chord, a B flat diminished 7th chord. But let's talk about what these notes are called. So when we had B flat major 7, there's a B flat, a D, an F, and an A. So we have to maintain those letters. It has to be a B flat, some kind of a D, some kind of an F, and some kind of an A. Okay, so to make it diminished, we flat the D, we're going to flat the F, and although that looks like an E, it's actually an F flat. And now we've got our A, we're going to flat that twice, and we are going to call this an A double flat. Alright, I know you'd like to think about this as a G and this is an E. Technically it is an F flat and an A double flat, but whatever works for you is okay. So all you have to do to check is just go up 1, 2, 3 half steps, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and that might be the easiest way to figure it out. Okay, so after you've practiced finding these chords, we've got a red dot on each of these little keyboards to make sure that you find the right notes of the chord. You can try filling in the notes here. Now remember that each one of the notes has to skip a letter. So that's why we've got this first one here. We've got a C at the bottom. Then you'll want to be putting in E flat, because that's 3 half steps above it. And then we've got a G flat, 1, 2, 3. And then a B double flat, 1, 2, 3. Because it has to skip a letter. C, E, G, B double flat. If we put an A at the top, it wouldn't be skipping a letter, so technically it's not correct. But as I said, you can think of it that way. Alright, I hope that's clear. And have fun with your diminished 7th chords. Alright, thanks.